Some may criticize the Danish study for not yet being peer-reviewed, but it has been. It was peer-reviewed by me and several colleagues, and all of us have decades of experience with these types of studies. That it has not yet been peer-reviewed by anonymous journal reviewers is inconsequential. That is exactly the same argument that we made about vaccines, right? Peer review is this idea that may or may not be the best way to go about actually assessing whether or not a scientific result is likely to be replicable and rigorous, and therefore the result is likely to stand for a while. What is not true is that invoking peer review therefore makes you scientifically literate or indicates that the thing that was peer reviewed is therefore definitely true. Same thing for vaccines, right? Just because the concept has in its birth something awesome about it does not mean that the way it is currently being used either has any relationship with that origin, or that it is being used appropriately by the people saying it. So I thought this was just brilliant. This is again Martin Kulldorff saying, yeah, people who don't know what they're talking about will say this research is just a preprint, it's not peer reviewed, therefore I can ignore it. And he's saying, you know what? I'm as good an arbiter as any, and he doesn't say it, but I will go ahead and say, like, he's probably a much better arbiter than almost everyone, if not anyone else. He's peer-reviewed it. He's assessed the research. He's better at it than we are. We don't do this research. We're merely sort of, biologists in not even a particularly adjacent field going like, okay, we can read science and we can assess this. And we can also read other scientists who are assessing it going like, I assessed it. That's what peer review is. Therefore, not to say that there are errors, and he actually goes through sort of the weaknesses, and he doesn't point to the authors of the Ben study at all. He says, given the data they were working with, which is the fault of the trials done by the pharmaceutical companies who did them, given the data they were working with, they did as bang up a job as you could possibly expect.
Right. And I want to make clear, though, you're right. He is definitely in a better position to peer review this because this is his field, right? What we did was what our job is, right? We went through the evolutionary logic, and I've pointed to the place that I think we missed something that turns out to be true and clear, right? The potential benefit for vaccination with live virus vaccines. You have heard us say, actually, there is a huge schedule of vaccines that people get. What are the chances that it's all going to be good, right? So the question is, hey, it turns out to be a much stronger signal than we might have even expected, but it goes in the direction that we pointed out.
And clarifying and simplifying, right? It's not just, I have to somehow figure out, I have to know. It's like, actually, we are presented here by Ben's former research. Given a choice, especially, so was it, I think it was polio and typhoid, that both have an oral version and a non-oral version. And one of them is live attenuated and one of them is adjuvant rich, dead. And, go with the live attenuated when given a choice.
Okay. So our model worked well there. We figured out a pattern, and the pattern is stronger than even I would have guessed. Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's, potentially a little compromised because that work existed before we did our logic. So it's impossible to know whether we were in some way informed by it, although certainly never encountered the work until now. Yeah. However, on the front of the COVID vaccines, right, you and I also at length went through the logic here. And what we came up with was we are concerned about the hazard of both of these technologies. But if we had to get one, it would be the adenovector one. Why?
Adenovirus vector.
Adenovirus vector. Why? Because one dose, which actually should have been a clue to us about the effectiveness of it alerting the immune system. But the adenovirus vectored vaccine is one dose, and the lipid nanoparticles are clearly concerning with respect to their ability to get into cells and then the likelihood of them causing the attack of those cells by the immune system, which would surely read the cells that were making the spike protein as virally infected, which might be true of the adenovirus vectored vaccines too, but it's not likely to be a random distribution, which could land in your heart or some other circulatory tissue. So I don't know. These numbers suggest a net benefit to the adenovirus vectored vaccines, whereas no benefit to the others at a net level. We don't know how that looks over the long term. It's still possible that the adenovirus vectored vaccines are net negative if you look over a longer time horizon. However, we did get the logic right about which one to bet on from the point of view of reducing the risks of intervening in a complex system in a new and unknown way. And so in any case, I think it reflects well on what we were doing, and given the amount of crap we've taken over what we were doing, those who have given us that crap, I think, are now have the burden of explaining how it is that we guessed these things if we weren't actually doing the logic correctly.